This is the Adidas Boston 8, and it's mostly like the Boston 9 and pretty much exactly as the Boston series has looked for 9 years. 9 iterations, or 9 models of the Boston anyway, have looked like this. That is all about to change because the Boston 10 looks like this. A totally different looking running shoe, but is it still doing what the Boston has always set out to do? A lightweight racing and training shoe. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Let's get into it. I think that the Boston 10 has to be one of the most radically changed models from a previous version in, I don't know, like ever. If you look at the two models side by side, they look nothing alike, mostly because of the huge stack height we get in the Boston 10. By way of comparison, the Adidas Boston 9 had a stack of 22.5 mil. The Boston 10 though, a whopping 39 mil. Big difference is also in the overall weight of the shoe. While I don't own a pair of the Boston 9s, I have checked how much my US men's 13 Boston 8 weighed, and they came in at a very reasonable 292 grams. That is almost 70 grams less than the Boston 10. With such differences in the weight and in the stack, it's fair to ask the question if the Boston is still the shoe that it always has been. And surprisingly, I'm gonna say my initial impressions at least are mostly yes. I'm gonna talk about those in a little bit more detail, but before I do that, let's talk about what the shoe is. And what it is a neutral road running shoe with a lightweight mesh upper sitting on top of a Light Strike and Light Strike Pro midsole that does house the Adidas energy rods. If you're not familiar with what the energy rods are, they're basically Adidas's version of a carbon plate. Most carbon plates are a single piece of nylon or carbon or some sort of material. In the case of the energy rods, they are carbon in some shoes, not in the Boston 10. I think that they're fiberglass, and there are 5 that are anatomically placed under the foot. We've got 39 mil of stack in the heel, 31 mil in the forefoot, giving us an 8 mil drop. Now, as far as a US men's size 9 goes, they would clock in at 10.4 ounces or 296 grams. And if you're interested, my US men's 13 comes in at 357 grams or 12.5 ounces. Like I've said already, the most polarizing feature of the Boston 10 is the stack height. It is a wild difference from any of the previous Boston shoes that we've seen, but the material that they've used as part of the midsoles also changed. Ever since the Boston 5, we've seen the Boost compound form part of the Boston's midsole setup. That's all gone in the Boston 10 in favor of a complete Light Strike setup. But instead of having Light Strike only, we've got a Light Strike Pro top layer, and then underneath that we've got the regular Light Strike. This was a clever move by Adidas because if Adidas would have used a full Light Strike compound for all 39 mil of its stack height, we would have had a much heavier shoe. The Light Strike Pro is a similar ride to regular Light Strike, and if you have run in a Light Strike shoe in the past, you will know it to be quite a firm and responsive compound, which is why I say that surprisingly, even with such a big stack height, we are getting a lot of the same ride characteristics from the previous Boston shoes. The previous Boston shoes have been all about speed, And while they've had a lower stack height, they've used Boost in all or part of its midsole setup to give a responsive but well cushioned feel when you're so close to the ground. Going away from that more cushion type of setup and using light strike only gives you a more responsive feel, even though you've got a lot more midsole under your feet. The energy rods, while they're there, I can't say that they offered me any sort of extra benefit. It could be just that I've only taken it on a couple of runs, or that I'm not used to it. Or it could also be that because Light Strike as a compound is so firm, the feeling of the energy rods was just lost on me. And I guess that's why the Boston 10 is really different to other high stack shoes that I've run in. Most of the high stack shoes, well, probably all of them that I've run in the past, have always been plated from the forefoot right to the heel, and have often been, again, have always been a super soft compound. So you're getting that ultra cushion feel, aided by the responsiveness that you get from having a stiff nylon or carbon plate. The upper, I think, is really sweet. Aesthetically, I think it is on point. I love the suede panel around the toe cap, and it really brings this almost 80s meets 2000 vibe to the overall look of the shoe. It's also a really nice touch, considering we don't really see suede on performance running shoes these days at all. The rest of the upper is made from a really nice lightweight mesh that is made using 50% recycled materials. I'm a huge fan in seeing sustainability make its way to really any kind of shoes, but it's especially great to see those sort of features coming into performance-based shoes, just because they tend to cop quite a hiding, and their life tends to be a lot shorter than what a lifestyle model would be. I haven't probably running it enough to truly assess how comfortable and breathable it actually is, but on my first couple of runs, one of those was on a treadmill, the other outdoors, it did okay. The heel is nicely cushioned, the tongue itself isn't, and the tongue is attached, I guess, to like an inner sleeve within the shoe itself, almost like a sock, I think Adidas call it, or a bootie. But what's really nice about what they've done with the Boston is they still allow you to get a lockdown through the use of the lacing system, which is something that I think a traditional bootie style upper lacks, and why it can be really hit and miss to have one of those style uppers, especially in a performance shoe. The outsole is there, it's continental rubber, and there are 4 pods, 2 in the forefoot and 2 in the heel. I experience no issues, and I think there's actually a good amount of rubber here for this type of shoe that would suggest it to be rather durable. I would go true to size for the Boston 10. If you've run in any of the other Boston shoes, this fits the same way as those. I tend to find that the Adidas running shoes to be fairly consistent with sizing. So if you have run in any of those type of shoes, just get the same size that you normally get. But if you never have, go true to size, and I think you'll get the fit you need. As far as my closing thoughts go for the Boston 10, it's probably a little bit inconclusive. Unconclusive? No, I think it's inconclusive. I mean, whatever it is, I haven't quite made up my mind yet. Aesthetically, I love the shoe. I think it looks awesome. I'm really digging the stack height and the way the upper looks. And I like the ride, but I don't love the ride. And for $260, yep, they retail at $260 here in Australia. I want to love the ride. It might be a shoe that grows on me. We'll see. I would recommend it on the basis that you are looking for a tempo shoe or a shoe to go faster in. I think the high stack can be misleading. I would caution people that look at the shoe and see a nice thick slab of foam in the midsole, thinking that you're going to get this ultra squishy ride, because you're not going to get that. I'm really interested in your thoughts, especially if you've run in the Boston series before. Do you like the direction that Adidas is going? And if you've tried the Boston 10, how do you think it compares? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. But until the next video, laters.